Welcome to Why Should I Invest? Developed by the International Collegiate Angels Network, or ICAN. At ICAN, we believe that campus-born ventures are today's most underappreciated asset class. Each podcast will spotlight a campus-born founder and the venture they're building. I'm going to ask the tough questions that investors would want to ask. Today, I'm here with David Scieszka, the founder and CEO of a company called Vertical Longevity Pharma. David, welcome, and thanks for coming in today. And why don't you give us a little background on yourself and on your company?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Dr. Dave Scieszka. Let's see, background on myself. So, strangely, I started off in the Army as a psychological operations specialist. Always had a compulsion to help people, which I know is not typical for people who join a branch such as the Army. But ended up getting my introduction to science that way. We were basically census takers. And so I noticed this trend where people with access to healthcare, they would age at a normal trajectory. And people without access to healthcare, they would age at a much more rapid way. And so that was, for me, evidence, real world evidence of aging itself and how we could potentially intervene in the aging process in a preventative way by way of access to healthcare. But then I ended up getting into science formally as a biotechnologist, computer scientist as well. So I've spent half my career as an informatician, but still wanted to help people. So I went into biomedical sciences, focused on the translation of science and aging, trying to figure out the process, what it is, how we can intervene. Got an MBA at the same time, trying to really commercialize these interventions and strategically think about how we can do this. So it's one thing to have a great idea, but another thing to implement it, right? So it's
Absolutely.
Those two things have to be aligned. And then for the company itself, during my postdoc, we found this vaccine approach against a fundamental driver of aging. And then I worked down the hallway from a key opinion leader or a world expert in a different vaccine platform that basically outcompetes all of the other vaccine platforms from a business standpoint and a scientific standpoint. And so I said, can we do this? And he said, absolutely. And that's kind of where we were off to the races. We ended up testing in mice. We saw incredible therapeutic benefits. And then the opportunity to help intervene in the aging process was too great to ignore. So we spun out the company, and that's where we find ourselves today.
Right. Wow. You're quite an impressive guy. What a background. When did you spin out the company? Was this in the last couple of years then that this was spun out?
Yeah, my postdoc, as soon as we had the data, I used that as kind of our keystone. We pushed it forward, but then I realized so 2023 is the short answer to that.
Okay.
My postdoc. And then we were misaligned with investors on a lot of different avenues. So I had to pivot multiple times, realign the messaging, many different things happened along the way.
Sure.
But we started our formal fundraising round of 2025. JPM we went to in January. And so, yeah.
Great. Yeah, well, it's an impressive company. And you guys are focused on atherosclerosis, which is a very common, affliction for people that are aging. I know that it's in my age group that it's something that we have to be cognizant of and manage. And tell us how your approach that you guys have developed with Vertical Longevity Pharma differs from and you say that the statins approach is actually the best-selling, I guess, pharmacology intervention of all time.
Yeah, so you're right. It affects more than half of Americans. We know that 805,000 heart attacks happen per year, unfortunately. That's a sobering statistic, but we know that this can also start as early as age 15.
Sure.
These plaques forming in your arteries and veins, the clogging of the arteries and veins, and that's in a disease state, we call it atherosclerosis. And so statins were designed to prevent that growth, to slow the growth, but they were never designed to clear plaques. And thank you for setting that up. They are the best-selling drug class of all time because they do their job. They slow the growth, they slow the disease. But we thought about this as a root cause mechanism. Can we revert or clear these plaques? Because if you think about the slowing of growth, you will just offset the curves. We want that curve to be flat. We don't want people to have heart attacks. We want to say that by targeting the root cause, instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, not to disparage statins in all of their glory, but we
Yeah.
want to target this as a root cause to clear the plaques, to reverse the disease. And that's the real therapeutic potential of this vaccine.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you guys have made this into a vaccine type of a delivery mechanism. What is the typical delivery mechanism for the statin intervention?
Yeah, oral formulation, which
Okay.
makes the domestic market adoption much more available. And
Right.
we actually, that's why we strategically chose our vaccine it's called a virus-like particle. It's a vaccine platform that can be formulated in an oral
I see.
formulation. That'll take additional R&D downstream.
Uh-huh.
We want to go to the clinic first in a vaccine platform because of the capabilities. And then once those are proved out, then we can have additional R&D efforts to make the oral formulation. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And where exactly are you in the product development life cycle?
So we have an MVP.
Okay.
We have tested it in vivo. We skipped over the cells, so we went into mice because a vaccine approach, it's a lot more difficult to vaccinate
Sure.
cells. So
Yeah.
we went into mice, we tested the therapy, and now we're going down the preclinical pathway towards IND submission. I'm betting that a lot of your viewers will understand IND
Yes.
applications. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So we're showing right now preliminary efficacy. We need to test toxicology. We need to test broader efficacy in a way that the FDA is going to recognize this is viable and safe. And we know
Okay.
it's safe.
Okay.
But there have been previous clinical trials on our uh, platform itself, the virus-like particle, 8 clinical trials, safe as a flu vaccine. On our specific target, protein target, there have been 3 clinical trials for the indication of breast cancer,
Hmm.
all shown as safe as well. That's not an IP conflict there either. It's just to say that our target has been de-risked and our platform has also been de-risked. So we just have to basically go through the motions, the preclinical motions, before IND approval. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I get it. And your roadmap then, product development roadmap. When would you have? In best case scenario, when do you think you might be able to take this thing to the market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That depends a lot on IND. Well, we're starting from the beginning. That depends a lot on how well we can argue with the FDA, the models, the animal
Sure.
models that we can argue we need to do. In best case scenario, we can do 2 animal models, toxicology, rabbits, and say rats. In the worst case, it would be rabbits and pigs. And so those would be different costs, different timelines. In the best case scenario, we would think phase one in humans by 2028. But in the worst case, it would be pushed out further. And that would also depend on whether or not we get approval for a specific clinical patient population. So if we can get orphan designation, which is a fast track, or a fast track designation, but they're both much more accelerated. So we could potentially be a little bit earlier, so maybe 2028, or a little bit extended if we are
Yeah.
unable to argue effectively with the FDA. But
No,
that relies on CROs.
I
Yeah.
appreciate your realism on that. There, it is sometimes a long product development roadmap, but your product seems to be targeting something that the FDA would be very favorable in terms of getting rid of as much red tape as possible. I mean, this is something that afflicts a lot of people and has a lot of different applications. Basically, when I'm looking at all the different, you mentioned the main indication for this, but then it also might address kidney disease, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, pulmonary fibrosis, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, and that goes back to the root cause. So if we're
Right.
targeting a root cause of age-related diseases, the ability to target all those indications is wide, very
Yeah.
wide. And we've run many of these numbers as part of the ICOR program. I'm not sure if
Yes.
you're
Sure. Yeah. The ICOR program. Yeah. And that was
so we
at,
went,
at that was at U New Mexico.
yep,
Yep.
University of New Mexico,
Okay.
exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So we
familiar with that
actually
program actually. Yeah. Yeah.
it was an intensive process. I mean,
Uh-huh.
geez, going
Right.
after 100 interviews in 3 months.
Yeah. Well, you guys have done a lot of accelerators. I'm looking at Innosphere. You've done the apparently the iCore thing you mentioned, but you also have a couple others on here. I'm trying to find them quickly here, but um, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, that's been great. Innosphere, great group of people, highly
Yeah.
recommend. especially if you're in the Southwest, your tech transfer office might be able to waive the application fee for you so you can get into the program
Uh-huh.
at no cost to you, which at a $20,000 price tag, many startups who are spinning out of academia can't afford it when they're first starting
Right.
out. So that was an incredible opportunity. And then Nucleate as well, that was an activator, very competitive. We were able to gain a bunch
Okay.
of meetings with potential investors. That's actually where we got our first investor was through
Uh-huh.
Nucleate. Been in front of numerous different investors who have opened the door to other investors. So as the entrepreneurial process goes, if you look at all doors being shut as a barrier, it's not going to work. So they've actually, their no is always an open door somewhere else. And
Yeah.
so they might not be interested at this time. And that's a different
Right.
version of a no. And that's kind of how we've been able to learn over time through these accelerators that this isn't the end.
Right.
There's not an end. That it doesn't have to be an end anyway.
Yeah, and here you are talking to me, and you guys, right now, it says in my notes that you're seeking 500,000 to 1 million on the current round.
Yes, exactly. Seeking $1 million via convertible note or safe. And we actually have a smaller raise where we can activate a non-human primate study for 240K. So as soon
Hmm.
as we reach that milestone, we'll engage in a primate study, which is an incredible cost, but it is part of a broader raise, $1 million, in order to perform a safety study, and manufacturing is going to be initiated. Mhm.
Okay, now, you mentioned that you have one investor, C Lab Ventures or something like that. Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shila P. It's
Shylab. Okay,
I
yeah,
know it's spelled
yeah,
interestingly. It
Shylab.
stands
Yep,
for
yep.
it means moving honorably forward.
Uh huh.
I'm a huge fan of these guys. They
Yeah.
are people first venture capital group. And so it's hard to say
Well,
that in many cases, but I mean, they're interested in high impact diseases,
uh huh.
atherosclerosis being one, Alzheimer's being another,
Right.
because they're personally affected by them. So they have the personal passion as well. And that's an incredible alignment that we have. Of course, they have to make money, and the return on this when it goes is going to be enormous, but we want to partner with people who are interested in helping people as well,
I
because that's
got
our
it.
passion.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I get that. That's very well said, by the way. So She Lab Ventures, I'll definitely look them up. I haven't heard of them before. Very interesting. Tell us a little bit about your team that's that's operating this venture.
Yeah. I always struggle talking about myself, so I briefly joined the Army, and that's only to say that I understand team, mission, execution. This is my passion. I will get this done.
Hmm.
Uh, our CSO, she is an incredible investigator. She's done her PhD in vaccines,
Hmm.
specifically virus-like particles. So she understands the manufacturing process, the testing process. She also has been a part of numerous startups. So she's second in command right now to the CSO of her current company. She understands ops, regulatory. She's connected with so many different CROs and CDMOs that are going to be able to assist us in our really lean methodology here in order to get this as
Hmm.
fast as possible to the clinic.
Hmm.
Bryce Jakarian, he's the guy that I work down the hall from. He's been producing this vaccine in a research grade setting. He's a KOL in virus-like particles, been doing this for 30 years. And then Dr. Kylie Kavanaugh, I really want to focus on her. She's the director of the Wake Forest non-human primate colony. She's going to be running our primate studies. She is, well, personally interested in this vaccine because she's an expert in aging vaccines, cardiovascular, and metabolic. And those are all indications that we're going after.
Yeah.
Specifically atherosclerosis first and then metabolic implications second. And so she's going to be providing the studies that significantly reduce costs, which only adds value to the investors. And then Frank Vicesi, he's going to be performing a safety study in New South Wales, which is Australia. And that's one, to placate any FDA concerns before they arise, and two, in order to establish our presence down in Australia for downstream clinical trials to get that
Wow.
50% tax credit.
Wow. You guys have a tremendous team. That it sounds very exciting. Most of you are. I mean, you're working kind of virtually right now. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
Virtually across the globe. So if I
Across the
can't make a
globe.
meeting, of course I
Yeah.
can. And
Yeah. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. What a wonderful company you're developing here and a tremendous asset and benefit to humankind. So tell me, as we wrap this up today, David, why should I invest?
That's a really good question. This is going to be our platform and target have been both de-risked, like I mentioned. It's got the best margins of any biologic on the market. We can actually hit the 15 cents per dose at cost to us, which is comparable to statins, by the way, in a vaccine platform. So then we can go to the insurance companies and we can offset $400 billion in healthcare burden associated with atherosclerosis alone. So we can actually price this to insurance much higher. In the case of heart attacks, they are upside down on their insurance policy for at least 10 years. And so if we're charging to insurance companies thousands of dollars per dose, they're not going to blink an eye. They're still making money. So in us, that's just for one indication. And if we can talk about single vaccine being able to be implicated in numerous different diseases, this is a single asset R&D play with enormous ROI potential, but also the sub-licensing opportunities. This is now structured as a multi-disease or multi-asset play, a platform technology. In downstream, we can produce this in a thermostable fashion, which is going to be in either transdermal or oral formulations. We can go global. We've already strategized from point A to commercialization in order to make the most effective, cost-effective, disease indication effective, and globally distribution. We can achieve all of this with this single asset R&D play. And so that's hopefully a compelling reason to invest.
Well, it is an extremely well-stated argument to invest, David. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. I've been talking with David Scieszka. He is the founder and CEO of Vertical Longevity Pharma. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate the opportunity.
For more information about how you can get involved in the ICAN mission, please contact me directly via email at tomdenning@icanhub.net.